Good afternoon to all. So in the last class, we discussed about embedded OS and how it will be built and what are the specifications of that particular OS. So now we will discuss in this particular class about the embedded firmware development languages. So the firmware, the applications which are going to do develop for a particular embedded system. For that particular embedded system, what are the different development languages we are going to use of. So now it is mainly divided into three types. So if you take embedded firmware, so that particular embedded firmware is divided into three types. One is target processor controller specific language. Second is target processor controller independent language. Third is a combination of assembly language and high level language. Okay. So these are the three different types of embedded firmware which can be developed. So when you talk about the target processor or controller specific language, that means that language is nothing but what? So it is that language which will be understood by the microprocessor. So whatever the program you are going to write, that we are going to write using the instructions of that particular processor. So if you are using 8085 processor, you are going to make use of the instruction 8085 instruction. If you are using 8086, we are going to use the 8086 instruction. If you are using 8051 microcontroller, we are going to use the instruction of 8051. That is, it is the processor specific. Okay, so architecture is specific. The instruction set which you are going to have for that particular processor is specific to that particular processor only or controller only. That's why it is called as target specific language. That is, either it may be a processor or it may be a controller. So the next type is your target independent language. That means what? So it is not dependent on the instructions. Okay, so you're going to write the program using your high level language such as C, C++, or Java, etc. So normally these are called as high level language. So those languages, they are called it as what? A target specific target independent language. So it is not specific to that particular processor. So it is independent. So it can be written, same program can be written and it can be run on the different processor. Okay. So only thing is the compiler and the processor which you are going to use, that you have to select it. So the third type is, it's a combination of assembly and high level language. So in some of the code, we are going to have the combination of assembly and high level language. So for that particular type of firmware requires, so we are going to make use of combination of assembly and high level language. So next comes, what do you mean by first one, which is assembly language based development, which is nothing but your target processor controller specific language which you are going to have. So your embedded assembly language development program is nothing but what? It's a target specific. So which you are going to have. So this is a target specific which you are going to have. Now, so when you are discussing with your assembly language, so whatever the language you are going to write, that will be in the notation of machine language. Okay. So if we talk about the machine language, that particular language is a processor understandable language. So your assembly language is nothing but what? Human readable notation of machine language. So machine language is nothing but what? Which you'll understand only zeros and ones. Okay. So the machine language is nothing but the zeros and ones. But what is assembly language? So assembly language is nothing but, that's a human readable notations. So that means the person who are going to write the program, so that he is going to understand it. That particular notation he is going to understand. So then that, whereas machine language is processor understandable language, whereas your machine language is known as processor understandable language. So that will be, when you talk about the processor understandable language, the processor understand only the binary. That is, either it will understand 0 or 1. Since the processor deals with binaries only, so machine language is nothing but the binary representation of the instructions which you are going to have. Now, when you are going to have the assembly language and machine language, so if you take the assembly language or machine language, they are processor dependent. So why it is called as processor dependent? As I told you that, so individual processor, if you take, a processor will be having its own instruction set. So it will be having the own instruction set. So if we take the 8085, it will be having its own instruction set. If we take 8086, it will be having its own instruction set. If we take the 8051 microcontroller, it will be having a separate instruction set. If you take the ARM, it will be having the separate instruction set. So that's why it is called as that particular language which you are going to write the program. So that will be dependent. Okay, that is processor or controller dependent. So whichever the processor you are going to use, either it may be a 8086, 8085 you can use, 8086 you can use, or 8051 you can use, or ARM you can use, or ARM Cortex. So there are a number of microcontrollers and processors are there which you are to use to build an embedded system. So whatever the language you are going to make use of to write a firmware, so that will be dependent on that particular controller or processor specific. Okay, so that was assembly language. That why it is the assembly language programming is called as a controller dependent language. Okay, so now whenever you are going to write the assembly language, so it is the nothing but what is a task of writing processor specific machine code in mnemonic form. So we are going to have, with respect to the theory, we are telling that whatever the task you are going to write. So task here is nothing but what? It is nothing but one program. Okay, here we are going to call it a task. So task is nothing but the program. So when you are writing the program, what will happen? So that particular program is specific to that particular program. That particular task is a processor specific, and whatever the code you are going to write, so that will be in the mnemonic form. So that means it will be in terms of instructions. The program will be in terms of instructions of that particular controller. So in terms of instruction of that particular processor which you are going to have. So later on, what are the mnemonics you are going to have? So that particular mnemonics you are going to convert into actual processor instruction. So that particular mnemonics which you are going to write, so that particular mnemonics you are going to convert it into actual processor instruction, or it is called as machine language. So where the machine language is nothing but it is represented in 0 or 1. So now next is how we are going to convert that particular mnemonics into machine level language, or your assembly language into machine level language. So we are going to make use of the assembler. So assemblers are the assemblers. We are going to make a tool which is used to convert the assembly language to the machine level language. Okay, so similarly, if you want to compiler are basically used to convert the high level language to low level language, whereas the assembler is the tool which we are going to use to convert the assembly level language to low level language, or binary language, or machine language. So all are same. Okay, low level, machine language, or binary. Okay, all these three terms are referred to the same thing. So next, when it comes to the general format of the assembly instruction, so how it will be written? So it will be, instruction will be written in terms of opcode and operands. Okay, so first you are going to write the opcode, then it will be followed by operand. So if I am specifying with respect to your ARM instruction only, if I'm going to write with respect to the ARM instruction only, how we are going to write? So we have the add instruction, right? So for example, I'm telling add R3, R1, R2. I'm giving the example of R, that's it here. So here your R1 and R2 are the source operand. So these are the R3, R1, R3, R2. So these are called as the operands. Okay, so these are called as the operands. And this is add is specified as opcode. So your add is called as the opcode. So opcode, normally it is called as operation code. Opcode is normally called as the operation code. So now what this particular opcode is telling? The opcode is telling to the processor that what operation you have to perform. Okay, so it is telling to the processor that what operation it has to perform, on what data it has to perform. So operands reference on what data it has to perform. So the data will be residing in the operands, which is in terms of, it may be either in the register or it may be in memory. Okay, so then that particular operand provides you the data and information required to perform the action. Okay, whatever the operation you have to do, so that particular operation to be performed, so the data has to be required in your operands. Okay, so here the example what they were given in your textbook, according to a textbook, is 8051. Okay, so in the 8051 you have the instruction move a comma 30 #30. So it is nothing but what? So your 30 is the decimal number. Okay, so it is the decimal number which will be moved. So the decimal value 30 is moved to the register or accumulator. So where A refers to the accumulator register. So you have the register, that particular register is called as accumulator register. So here the decimal value 30 is moved into the accumulator register, A. So here, if you take your move A is there, right? So your move A. So your move A is nothing but what? It's the operation code. So it's the opcode. What they are written. Opcode stands for operation code. Whereas your 30 is the operand. Whereas the 30 is the operand. Because when you have the uh, when you are writing your operation code machine language mnemonic, you will be knowing for this particular code, for this particular opcode, this is the binary equivalent of the instruction. So suppose it is finally it is going to convert into that particular binary value only inside your processor. Okay. So then 30 is the operand here. So your 30 is the operand. Okay. So the same instruction when written in machine language, how it is going to write? So it is going to write this one as move A for move A, but the binary equivalent of move A is 0 1 1 1 0 1 0 0. So this is for move A. So this is the binary equivalent of move A. So this is your operand, that is the value of 30. So that is 30 decimal. So whatever the value it is going to store inside your register, it will be in hexadecimal. If you convert 30 to hexadecimal, it will be 16 1 is 16, it will be 1e. So if I represent 1e in binary value, it will be 0 0 0 1 1 1 1 0. So that's what it is. Okay, it is 30 which you are going to have. So it represents the operand 30. So other example which you are going to have is increment A is another instruction which will be used in your 8051. Okay. So in this in your prescribed textbook, they are taken the reference of microcontroller 8051. So it is nothing but it is the instruction holding operand implicitly in the opcode. So implicitly means what? It is indirectly. So it is going to have the operand. So that will be stored in the accumulator register A, and the contents which is there in A, it will be incremented by 1. So if you see into the machine language representation data sheet, so you're going to have the data sheet. So in that particular data sheet, you are going to have what is the machine instruction, what is the machine level instruction for the given instruction. Okay. So whatever the assembly instruction are there, assembly instructions are there for that particular corresponding assembly instruction, what is the equivalent machine readable instructions which are there. So that will be, that sheet will be there. By referring to that particular sheet for increment A, okay, for increment A, the binary equivalent is this particular instruction. So the binary equivalent for increment A is 0 0 0 0 1 0 0. So if I represent with respect to hexadecimal value, it will be 0x 04. Okay, 4 is the value. So now, whenever we are writing the assembly language, since you have gone through the programming in your ARM instruction, all your assembly language instructions will be written one per line, right? So it will be written one per line. So next, the machine code that consists of whatever the machine code program you are going to have. So your machine code program consists of what? It consists of the sequence of assembly language instructions. So whatever the machine code you are going to have, so that particular machine code is going to have the sequence of assembly language instruction which will return one after the other. So it is going to return in procedural way. That is, it has to execute one task. Then after completion of that particular instruction, the next instruction has to be started. After the execution of the second instruction, the third instruction has to start. So it will be in sequence and it will be executed in sequence. So now if you take the each line of the assembly language program, so if you take the assembly language program, so the assembly language program is split into 4 fields. Okay, it is split into 4 fields as specified below. What are these particular 4 fields? One is your label. So second is your opcode. Third is your operands. Fourth is your comment. So as we have seen in your lab programs, so first will be your label. Label is nothing but, it is nothing but one address. That's it. Your label is nothing but one address. The second is your opcode. Opcode stands for operation code. So third is your operand, where what is the data you are going to do. So either it may be a register data or it may be a immediate value. So here it is a immediate value is considered as the operand. Okay. Next is you have the comment section. So it is going to be divided, any line of assembly language program is split into 4 fields. One is label, opcode, operands, comment. Okay. So now as we have seen in your program, so we have seen that again is there, that is label. So now why we are using the label? Label is basically used when you are making the branching instruction. So whenever you are going to make use of the jump or branch instruction, we are going to make use of the label. So next is opcode. So where the opcode stands for operation code. So the third is operands, on which the data, either the operands may be either operand may be either a source operand or destination operand. So the third one will be comment. So in this particular instruction, what will happen? Add a comma 30. So the immediate value 30, that is decimal value, it will be moved to the accumulator register A. So finally, when it is stored in A, the A contains what? Hexadecimal equivalent of 30. So that will be your destination operand. So you can see it here. It will be destination operand. A is the destination operand. Your 30 is the source operand. Okay. So that's what it is going to happen. So next, when it comes to the sample code here. So the sample code, what they have given is of 8051 assembly language. So what this particular program is doing. So when you are going to have the each assembly instruction, so the each assembly instruction has to be written in a single line, as we have shown. That is a rule. So when you talk about the rule, each assembly instruction has to be written in a single line. So when you are running in a single line, okay. So here it is going to be written. First is what? Delay. So you're going to have the delay. So then what is the value it is moving it to or not? The decimal equivalent of 255 is loading into the register or not. So the load register or not with what? With value 255. So next, decrement R1 and loop till R1 is equal to 0. So this is the instruction in your 8051. Okay, this is 8051 instruction. So what it will do? Decrement jump on not equal. So D is decrement. So decrement. If it is jump on not equal, so JN stands for jump on not equal. Jump on not equal. But whereas in your ARM instruction, it is branch not equal, BNE. We have specified BNE in your ARM instruction. Whereas in your ARM instruction 8051, it is JNE, jump on not equal. Till where I have to jump? Till the contents of R1 becomes 0. Where I need to jump? I need to jump to delay. So delay is the label. So for this particular label, the loop has to repeat. So again, when you cross delay, the delay will come to here. Again, it will repeat. So every time the value of your R0 will get decremented. 244, it will 254, it will become 253, it will become, and 252, it will become. Then till it equals 0, the loop will be continuing. Once the loop is completed, so what will happen? That particular delay function is be terminated. So now in your assembly language program, so it contains a main routine. Okay, so main routine is nothing but what? So it's a main function, similar to your main function. So you are going to have the C program, right? So if you have considering with respect to the C program, so your main function is what? Int main. So whether any other function, will be the predefined function, right? This is predefined function. So inside you can have multiple user-defined functions, right? You can have the user-defined functions or not. That depends upon the requirement. So sometimes it may require the user-defined function. Sometimes you may not require the user-defined functions. So that's what they are telling. What they are telling. So whatever the assembly language instruction program you are going to have, it will be containing the main routine. Main routine here in a C program is main. So like that only in assembly language instruction, it will be having the main program, or it may not have the subroutines. So it may not have the subfunctions, may or may not. So depending upon my requirement, so I may have written the subroutines. If my requirement is not there, I'm not going to write for subroutine. So now here is one of the example what they have written. So the label can also be directly placed putting the desired address first. That means what it is telling here is I can specify in which address that particular subroutine can be written. So specify where subroutine can be started. Subroutine can start. That means what? So here org 0100h. That means your origin. So origin at which address? At 0100 address. So in that address only this particular subroutine has to be written. Okay. So that will start writing that particular return, that particular subroutine starting from that particular address. That is starting from the address 0100. Okay. So from that particular address, this particular loop is going to start. So next, whatever the assembly language instructions we are going to have, so that will be having the extension .asm. So whatever the assembly language program you're going to write, so that will be saved in the extension, that will be saved as extension.asm. All the assembly language program which you're going to write, irrespective of any of the microcontroller, either you are writing in your 8051 microcontroller, or you are writing your C programming, or if you are writing your C++, or if you are writing the instructions using 8085 or 8086 or 8051 or ARM instruction, all these assembly instructions. Okay, so assembly instructions will be having an assembly program that will be having the extension .asm. So and then the file which you are going to save, that one is referred as .source file. Okay, so where you are going to write that one next. So all these instructions will be written either in Notepad or WordPad. Okay, sorry if you have the IDE environment. So we are writing your microcontroller program in your Keel Microvision IDE. Okay, so that is one of the IDE where you are going to use. In some instruction, in some of the, if you take 8085 or 8086, we are writing in your turbo editor. That is using the edit command. We are going to use. You are going to write the program using the editor in Turbo C. Okay, so in your DOS prompt. So in the DOS prompt, you are going to make use of the editor. That is edit. So all of you, maybe you have been used that one. I think some of you have used that one, and some of you are right using the integrated development platform as of your Keel Microvision. So your Keel Microvision is the integrated development platform which will be given for many processor or controller. So now when your program becomes too high, so the efficient programmer, what you are going to do is, so he is going to divide the big programs into smaller one each. So that means when a program is too complex or big, okay, so when it is big, so what they are going to do, the entire code can be divided into submodules. So your submodules is nothing but the function. Okay, so submodules is nothing but the function. So as I, if I told the example, like in your C program, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write, so one main function will be there. So I'm going to find the sum of one number. So total, I'm going to have one function, and average, I'm going to write another function. Average of class, I'm going to write another function. So like that, if a program becomes larger, I cannot go with a procedure oriented. So I will do what now? I want some functionality to be repeated. Okay, I will send the data, the same operation it is going to perform. Okay, so it is nothing but what, when you are calculating the average of a person, for example, I'm telling. So if you take the average of a person for each in your 4th B section, for example, if I'm take, so each will be having 8 subject, right? So here, if you take the class strength of 67 is your class strength, whether your subject is differing for all of these 57 people, no, all the subjects are same. Only thing what it is going to change with respect to 67 people is only the marks. Some may get 10 in one subject, some may get 8 in one subject, some may get 14 in one subject, or some may get out of 14 in the subject. So now, if I'm adding all these things, so I have to add only 8 values, right? So then you have to, I cannot go with the sequential action at the time. What I will go, I will write a program to add those number. So that man, if I'm doing that particular thing, what is happening? I'm going to reduce the complexity of the program. So that's what your modular program is going to do. So that particular type of programming which you are going to write is called as modular programming. So why we are going to make use of the modular programming? So if you are going with the modular programming, so it will be easy to code. Okay. So the main is they are telling that it is easy to code depending upon the function, what action it is going to take. So code easy to code or action to be performed. So next, if any problem according to the code, so then your debug becomes easier. So then if the debug becomes easier, you come to know that where the problem has been encountered. So if once you come to know where the problem is encountered, altering the code will also become easier. So altering the code will also become the easier. So that's why whenever you are going to have the big projects, all these big projects into divided into smaller modules one. Okay. So after writing in the smaller modules, they are going to integrate it all together. So that's what you are going to do when you learn, when you go and start working in that one. Okay. So next is how we are going to convert your source file to, you are writing a source file. So now we are going to convert your source file to understandable file. So that is nothing but what? So how we are going to translate the code from machine code to assembly code to machine code. Okay. So the translation of assembly code to machine code is performed by whom? By assembler, as I told you already. So assembler is the tool which you are going to use to convert the assembly language program to machine language program. So here also, if you are going with the 8051, so 8051, if I go, so here also you are going to make use of the Keil microvision only. For ARM also you are going to make use of Keil. For ARM, for 8051 also you are going to make use of Keil. So if we talk about the source file. So first, the source file you are going to write using the editor or IDE. So after writing the source file, I'm going to using the modular assembler. I'm going to convert that particular file in using the assembler. I'm going to convert that particular source file into the object file. Okay. So this particular object file is nothing but what? It is exa file, what you are going to have. So that is another name for your object file is exa file. So those exa file, that means when you are writing the modular programming. So when you are writing the modular programming is what? So this may be module one. So this may be another module two. So this will be a module three. So if I'm writing the entire project, what will happen? It consists of combination of all these three modules. So it's a combination of all these three modules. So when you're going to have the combination of all these three modules for a project, so combination of different modules. So what it consists, it's a big project which you're going to have. Okay. So then all these object code which you are going to have, so that when you are generated, so that in turn includes the library files. So here the library files are nothing but what? So it is nothing but hash include. So here LPC214x.h, what we have used for your ARM processor, that is your LPC2148 processor. So that I am going to use along with it, and that one I am going to send to the linker. So linker, it is going to do the linking of all these files. That means what is the sequence of your object one and what is the sequence of your object two. So this has to be linked, but initially they are done separately. So this particular module, so module one is created the object file one, module two has generated the object file two. So now I have to link it. How they have linked it? Depending upon the address. Depending upon the address where it has to start running, how they are related. So that I have to do it, and I have to assemble it, and I have to start that one. So once in the linker, after combining all these things, it has to create one more object file which is called as absolute object file. So your object file is nothing but what? Combination of all object files. Okay. So your absolute object file is a combination of all object files. So now once the all object files you are going to create it. So now I want to convert to the binary equivalent. So binary equivalent is nothing but exa code. I have to create it. So I have to create the exa code. So the exa code which you are going to create. So it is the object to exa code converter I am going to have. So here you are going to make use of the machine code which you are going to have. Okay. So that's how source file to object file translation is going to work. Okay. So next, when it comes to library file creation, you said. So libraries are nothing but what? So if you take the C programming, your hash include stdio.h, hash include codea.h, hash include math.h. These are nothing but the library files, right? So what these files consist of? So the libraries are specially formatted ordered collection of object modules. So okay. So it is nothing but what? Already object has been created with the help of the source file. So it is nothing but the collection of the objects files. But it is going to make use by the linker at the later time, at the runtime. So that's what what you are going to do in your stdio.h also. So what are the functions it requires? What are the functions your stdio.h is having? So it is going to have the function printf, scanf, all these things are there, right? So these are nothing but the functions. For those functions to work, I have some object file to be loaded in some place. Where this will be loaded, that will be stored in your stdio.h. So you can open your stdio.h and you can see it. What is there inside? What are the parameters you can send to that particular library file? So you can see to it, that one. So now it is nothing but what? It is nothing but a source code hiding technique. So you are going to have the source code. The source code is connected to the object code. So that particular object code, you are going to hide it. So I am not going to see the source. Okay. So you are not going to show the source. So if you're going to show the source, what will happen? So your IPR will fail. So that is your own intellectual property which you are going to have. So it is violate that one. So you are developed your own source code by your own by putting some of the effort. So you cannot simply give that particular source code to someone else, right? So if you're giving someone else, so whatever you have done by putting your effort, it will go waste. That's what it means. Okay. So it is nothing but, so when you convert your library from, when you are converting your source file to object file and the library which you are going to create, so what it is hiding, it is going to hide the source code. It's one of the technique for your source code. That means if you don't want to believe what is the source code you are going to have for the various functions written in your program. Okay. So like I will write the function in some place, and function declaration I'm going to do, I'm going to refer that one as header file. So you can create your own header file also. That is not big problem. So you can have your own header file. So even in your C programming, you can create your own header file. That is left to you how you are going to use that particular header file in the future for some program. So for using the library, you can have your own header file and you can define your own header file, so that if you are strong in your C programming, you will come to know all those things. Okay. So here in your 8051, so lib51 from Keil Software is an example for library creator. So you are going to have the lib51. So the lib51 is nothing but it's a software which you are going to have. So that will be used for your library creator here, lib51. So it is basically used to create the library files for A51 assembler or C51 assembler. So those A51 assembler or C51 compiler, they are specific to 8051 microcontroller. Okay. Since in your textbook, we are reading only with respect to the 8051 microcontroller. Okay. So next, when it is coming with the linker and locator. So your linker and locator is nothing but another software utility. Okay. So what it is going to provide? So this is basically going to provide you the linking the various object models. Okay. So this particular linking and locator is going to support you the various object models in a multi-model project. As I told you that, so you're going to create the object one, object two you have created. So those two objects has to be combined together. So I have to link it here. So object one, object two into a single one. So next, after doing that one, so it is going to generate you the absolute object code. So it is going to generate the absolute object code. So it is nothing but what? So who is responsible for that particular combining the object code? Your linker. So your linker is a program which combines the target program with the code of other program and sub-library subroutines. So it is going to combine the object code of other programs and library routines. So during the process of linking, the object file is created. So after combining all the object codes, so that will be creating a absolute object code. So this particular module contains the target code. Okay. So after object code, whatever you are going to get, so that will be generating your exa file. So whatever the exa file you are going to generate, so that will be used for your running the embedded application. So it is basically used for creating exa files for dumping into the code memory of the processor. So that is whatever the exa file you are going to generate, that particular exa file you are going to dump into the embedded system, a microcontroller, to make that particular microcontroller to work for that particular application. So that's what it means. Okay. So next is when you are going to have the object to exa file converter. So the exa file is the final representation which will be understood by the machine. So it is going to be exa file is representation for the machine code. So the same thing. So whatever the exa file you are going to generate, so that basically depends upon the processor or controller. So the exa file is totally different for different processor. It is different for Intel processor. It will be different for Motorola processor. It may be different for AMD processor also. So if we take for example, if we take the Intel processor, the target exa file format will be Intel X. So that is what it is going to have. So that will be in terms of Intel hexadecimal format. So if we take with respect to the Motorola, so the Motorola format will be in Motorola X format. So That also depends upon the type of Indian. So if you take the Intel architecture, so that will be following the Little Indian architecture. Okay. So if you take the Motorola, that will be following the Big Indian architecture. So these things you have to keep in your mind when you are writing the program. So which architecture does it is going to follow, how I have to write the program, all these things you have to keep in your mind. So now, what do you mean by exa files? So next is the question. So your exa files are ultimately ASCII files. Okay. So what it is going to basically represents, it is basically represents the hexadecimal representation of the target application. So you're going to have the application. Okay. Whatever you are going to build for application, that particular application is represented in hexadecimal format. So that particular represented application is represented in hexadecimal format. Hexadecimal format. That's it. So how we are going to create the hexadecimal file? So hexa file is finally created from by using the absolute object code. Okay. So that's how it is being done. So next comes what are the different advantages of assembly language based development. So if you go with the assembly language code development, so it is going to difference between assembly language based development and what are the drawbacks. So whenever we are discussing something, we should have some pros and cons of that particular language, right? Similarly, we are discussing here what are the advantages of the assembly language based development and what are the drawbacks of assembly language based development. So if you want to become a good assembly program, you should have the thorough understanding of the instructions. Okay. And you should have the thorough understanding how the code memory is going to work, how the data memory usage has to work, how the memory optimization has to be done. So you should have a strong knowledge of that one. So efficient code memory and data memory usage, you should know that one. So that is called as memory optimization. So memory optimization should be proper. So now another advantage when you are going to have with respect to the assembly language based development is it's going to provide you the high performance. Okay, so it's going to provide you the high performance. Big since whenever you are going to access the instructions using the assembly language, so what it will happen, it will be near to the processor. Okay, so when it is near to the processor, obviously the time taken to execute that particular program will also be fast. Okay, so that is one of the advantage which you are going to have. So it is will lead to high performance of the system. So low level hardware access, that means you can access the hardware in low level. That means in the instruction you can see it here, move like R2 comma R1. So that means I am directly manipulating the value of the registers. So here I am manipulating the value of the register. So when you are manipulating the value of the register, what it means, I'm accessing the contents of the register directly. That means the hardware level. So whatever the hardware you are going to use, I'm going to access that particular hardware easily. Okay. And if you want to access some memory, so I can access using the load and store instruction in terms of ARM processor. So the set will be happening. So next, the code reverse engineering also easy. So reverse engineering, you can do it. So reverse engineering is nothing but what? So you can have the code in 8051. So reverse engineering means I want to convert to ARM. So either if I'm going to have the if I'm generating the machine code, okay, machine code is nothing but binary code. So now reverse engineering is nothing but what? From the binary code, I have to develop the assembly code. From the binary code, I can develop the assembly code. So that is what the machine reverse engineering is going to tell. So finally, whatever the executable file you are going to generate, that will be understood by the processor. But I have to convert that one to assembly language means what? So again, from the binary value, what I'm going to have with the mnemonics, what I had. So I have to look for that particular each mnemonic and I have to find what that particular instruction is of type. You should not have that particular thorough knowledge. So then only you can do the reverse engineering. So now also you can do the reverse engineering. So there are a number of softwares are there in the market which will do the reverse engineering. If you give the executable file, so for that particular executable file, if you want to build a C program, so you can do if you give that particular executable file, that particular tool which will be there, that will convert that particular executable file into C program, or if you want in Java program, it will convert that one. If you want in C++, that will convert that one. So most of you know that one or not. If you don't know, you can search it in the net. So which will convert your assembly language to C program, or if you convert a binary language to executable file to C, or executable file to Java, or your executable file to C++. So it will give that one. So one complete exact code it will not give. Some minor changes you have to do by yourself, and you have to understand that code. So if you become a thorough programmer, you can do that one. Okay. So next, coming to what are the drawbacks of your assembly language program. So if you start describing the drawbacks of assembly language program here, so your drawbacks comes what? It requires high development time. Why it requires high development time? Because you have to read the entire processor architecture. How many registers it has, how many modes your processor is going to work, what are the interrupts which is accepted by that particular processor, and what are the different flags which are there. And depending upon the flag status, I have to write the program, I have to make the branch instruction to run. So these things I have to study, and I have to write the program, right? So when you are doing all these things, you are by studying the hardware and writing the program, obviously it will take what? It will take the more development time it will going to take. Okay. So it is mostly depends on the developer only. So whatever the program you are going to write, it is not developer dependency, because the time which the developer takes, so that depends upon the knowledge of processor by the developer. Because if I'm working in 8051, I will be knowing the architecture of 8051. I will be not knowing about the architecture of ARM. Then I cannot write the program from ARM. I can write efficiently 8051 program, but I cannot write the efficient 80 ARM program. Okay. So now the developer who is working on ARM can write the program efficiently by him, but I cannot write. So that's what it is called as developer dependency. So the next is non-portable. What is mean by non-portable? So whatever the program written in 8051. So if you take the program written in 8051 cannot be used for 8056. Cannot be used for 8086. It cannot be used for either for 8086. It cannot be used either for ARM. It cannot be used, or it cannot be used for 8051. So that means it is a processor or controller specific. So if I write the code for 8051, the same code has to be used for only for 8051 processor. It cannot be used for ARM or 8085 or 8086. Okay. So these are some of the advantages and disadvantages of your assembly language program. Okay. So anybody having any doubt in this? Anybody having any doubt? Anybody having any doubt till now?